All right, fact check this podcast. And tonight we are going to get away from politics, generally speaking, and we're going to talk some sports ball. So, a little conversation in a group chat that we're all involved in got to talking about how sports teams kind of look like what we would want society to look like, especially when they're working well. And we all had different examples, and we could tie it into football, soccer, basketball, baseball, a little bit of everything. So tonight, we're going to talk about how society kind of organizes itself around the structure of sports teams. So I've got Jonathan Hemingway, Carlos of Los Libertinos, and Trey is back with us as well. Jonathan hasn't been on the show before, so I'm going to let him introduce himself first, and then the others can introduce themselves, and then we will take it away.
Hey guys, thanks Justin for having me on. My name's Jonathan Hemingway. I was a basketball coach at the high school level for 15 years and got into running basketball camps and became a national evaluator full-time for about 7 years. And today I am a full-time father and a part-time farmer, and I do a little bit of this and that, and I've been reading a lot, but I'm glad to be on the show talking sports and culture.
Carlos?
Hey, what's up, Vatos? Yeah, man, thanks for having me on. I'm the host of Los Libertinos podcast, and I definitely put sports on the front foot on my show. It's something that especially football. And, my whole bid is that I want Texas to win a World Cup before the United States does. So I think that should, I built a stadium in my backyard. I'm all about this shit. I'm not playing around, even though I am playing around, but I'm not really playing around. But yeah, man. So I include that in my show, and I interview all kinds of people, and I always try to put that in the mix there if I can. And I got a good one coming up this Thursday with Daniel Coffin, where this is the second time I've interviewed him, but the second time we got into sports, and so it was interesting to have a different take because, I have my normal sports talk with the homies here, but sometimes it's good to hear some fresh takes that are different. I'm excited to be here too to get some fresh takes too.
If Carlos does not bring up either football or boxing in an episode, then there's probably something wrong.
Yeah, something's going on.
Trey, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Trey 50 Daniel. I run the Trey 50 Daniel YouTube and Twitch channel, and then I also have a Trey's Think Tank YouTube channel that I do more politics stuff. But I like to cover both politics and gaming, and sometimes go mix the two together. So that's kind of my stick.
So I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of kick this off.
You just did.
Sort of,
you just did by saying kicking it off. I thought, there you go, man.
Yeah. Well, I meant the more nuanced conversation around sports. Let's kind of take it from what's going on right now with football. Like, where do y'all draw kind of some societal parallels between American football and the culture and society, and kind of how you would want to see how we want to see that structured, and then we can take that and kind of branch off into the other sports as well.
Well, I would say, I'm jumping and be the first one to say, I think that if you just look at American football right now, you can see that there's some like devolving of the structure of how the sport is played now. Like they're trying to engineer how the game is played a lot, with all the different, adding new penalties and adding, different infractions depending on how, the roughing the passer on, Tom Brady is different from the roughing the passer. That could just be a missed call, but like there's definitely like some perspective of some devolving of stuff where, you see fights breaking out sometimes between teams, and that would happen. But like I think it's happening, like things are happening in a lot worse rate. Like the engineers are trying to manage the game now, and it's not really just allowed to be played between two very disciplined teams anymore. It's a lot of star players who are just they're allowed to flaunt. You have people like Deshaun Watson, all these people beating their wives and everything, and yet they're still in the league, and it doesn't matter. But somebody like, whether you think Tim Tebow was actually a good quarterback or not, I mean, I don't think that he was given a shot just because of his notoriety in that way. Those kind of things happening, I think, are to the detriment of the sport itself. Like just making it more about discipline and team play in the sport should be the most like integral part of it.
Until Peyton Manning came to Denver, Tim Tebow won more playoff games than anybody they replaced him with.
Yeah. So my take is that because American football is so ingrained culturally from, for basically since probably after middle school, you don't play in elementary, but middle school and up. And it has this, hierarchy style of the prom king is the quarterback and the prom queen is the cheerleader kind of style. Culturally, I think it's probably not good for a society. Now, I have an agenda, so I'm saying that straight up. But I don't know. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that took a lot of head damage over the years that are probably fathers, brothers, people we know that we don't even think about. Like, shit, how much did they really get hit in the fucking head for that long without really like thinking like, hey, man, like you just said, Trey, that dude's a wife beater. Whoa, I'm not saying that you have to have brain damage to beat your wife. I'm just saying, like, yeah, man, you probably, you take a lot of hits. And one of these lines that I've kind of said one time was that I know American football came out of the Ivy League schools, and it was being started and played in like a lot of these elite schools, high schools that all these lineages of presidents and stuff come out of. And I don't know how much brain damage do they get to think that they can become the world empire and shit like that. I mean, I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of people that are physically probably not well because of American football. Now, does that translate to like, oh, it's a bad cultural thing? I don't know. I mean, I would tend to think a little bit. And then on the sports side, like on Trey's point was, I would just say that the managers are just trying to manage profits, so you can just see that the protection of the high asset players is understandable. Again, I have this bit about, even before when I first started dating my wife, I told her, I was like, that I'm going to own a football team, right? Like a 4th or 5th division team in England, right? That's my shit. And she always thought it was funny and just playing it like, no, I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, right? So once that new show that Welcome to Wrexham came out, I kind of looked up how much a team costs, and shit like that. So anyway, I got my number. She told me, put 10 million in the bank and then we'll go shopping for a team or whatever. So like, I know it sounds funny, man, but like, man,
No,
like, that shit's my shit, and so I just think that culturally American football is ingrained. It's part of our DNA, but I don't know if necessarily it has to be a good thing. I know in sports in general, you tend to take out the good things, like learn how to win, learn how to lose, teammates, the friendships you make for life, on all sports. But I just don't know if American football and all of the damage some people take is a good thing. But that's kind of my take on that.
Now I'm gonna fact check you a little bit, since that is the name of the game here. Statistically speaking, football or soccer attributes more head injuries,
more concussions,
than American football. American football gets more put in the spotlight because it is such a generally more violent sport. But statistically speaking, it's a much, much smaller pool, and so there are far less concussions and head injuries that come from American football than actually from soccer or like global football itself. I think actually, I know it's in the top
it's almost
5,
double. It's almost
but yeah,
double.
like American football statistically doesn't rank. I think it's only in the top 5, like sports wise.
You don't think that's from the powers that be? When I'm saying powers that be, I mean like that. The narrative right now that I heard you say, Justin, is like, I didn't really say concussions. I said head trauma.
Well, I said head injury.
So but there's a consistent head trauma. As even if you try to tackle the right way, and shit like that. I mean, you're still, I played it. I'm short. I played it. Yeah, you get hit, man. You get hit. You get hit. There's probably people that have injuries, that carry injuries still from all that, and some of it is head trauma. Some of it is other stuff. People go into like hard labor, and they always wonder like, oh, why I have this pain in my. Yeah, it's probably because you got one fucking chingazo back in middle school. You don't even remember, and you've been carrying that one for life. So yeah, I mean, sure, yeah. They for sure. I've heard that before. I don't. I don't know. I guess I would just. I understand what you're saying. I don't know if it's that prominent in.
I have multiple scars from football. I never spent a single day in the hospital because of football. I played one game of soccer and spent 3 days in the hospital with a collapsed lung. So, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I could be wrong. That people don't get hurt from the sport. It's just that I think they do. I think that there is like, they are getting hit, and not everybody can take it. There's some that can, I mean, you can tell who can and cannot. But over from middle school.
Well, that's like Andrew Luck. Like he quit. In the prime of his career, he quit because he did not want to continue to put his body through that. And like, yeah, some people acknowledge that they can't and are willing to walk away.
Well, if I can jump in here, I think a good way to frame this conversation is that sports is really it provides a reflection upon our culture. It is not so much that culture. Culture may shape sports in a way, but sports doesn't really shape our culture. It's really a reflection. And so what I see, particularly with the NFL right now, is that, first of all, it's very democratized. Okay. Sure, there is a commissioner, Roger Goodell, but he does not act like a monarch. He does not act like a lot of people will accuse him of being this kind of authoritative dictator or something. But really, he manages, or he makes rulings based upon public opinion. Okay. And that's really what is bothersome to me about we've mentioned the word narrative. Okay. Narrative is merely just a story. Now, how much of that story is backed or based upon fact? As you know, when we begin to talk about politics, it doesn't matter, how much of the story is based in actual truth. If you can find one instance of, whether it's gun violence, which leads to, people saying, well, we've got to take up all of the guns, or, in sports, well, this guy gets a concussion, so therefore, the ironic thing about football, American football, and the NFL right now is that the people that are so outraged about concussions, I don't really hear necessarily. I don't hear from them a good alternative. It's really just outrage and kind of this self-defeating, thing of, well, the NFL is just driven by profits and these selfish coaches, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, it's the very people that are on ESPN or Fox Sports that are complaining about all of this, and they're very the revenue from these channels are generated by these by these NFL games. So that's what I see, is that the game has become very democratized. It is driven by the media and media outrage, and I think that we can.
Well, and the Players Association, like remember, like, because they're a union and they have to lobby for whatever, and that's the whole point that they were going to. Like, the Players Association is doing the lobbying with the media at their back, and then they're saying, then they're going to the media and saying, hey, look, all our players are getting concussions. Like Tua had these back-to-back concussions basically. So, like, we need something done. Like, we need action. And honestly,
cathedral action right here, right?
Yeah. I think that like it is like it's not a conspiracy, but it basically is a conspiracy that they're doing these things to try to, like, even with the Tua situation. So, like, okay, he might have been, like, he might end up being fine after all this, right? Like, and it may have just been something, and it may be the. We can't talk about, the things that the procedures that they've had to have over the last couple of years that could be affecting them even more negatively. So we can't necessarily talk about that, but that could be a factor, and they don't want to talk about this. So it's much easier to talk about a concussion, and so it's something that's already in people's minds. It's something that they can already harp on, and that the Players Association can go to the media and say, "Look, we need something done about this." But I guess getting back to like what an actual discussion of this is like, as far as in relates to society, like sports relating to society and the culture. There are both good things and bad things about the new ways that sports are. Or I like some things that are better about sports now, and that there are other things that are worse. So one of the good things that I really like, I've watched this guy called Trevor Power. He got in trouble a couple years a year or two ago. I don't know if you heard of him. But yeah, he was a pro pitcher. He fantastic pitcher. Blew the ball by people, but he got there because he literally studied every possible way to he refine his pitching, his form, his delivery, everything. He studied it down to his science, and he kept working on that. But the cool thing about him was that he started doing these. If you watch some of his videos, it's really cool because he would do things after pitching. So like he strikes somebody out, and then he acts like he's putting the sword in like in their side. You can see him. He does this little motion like he's putting the sword in, like stabbing him in the side. So that kind of stuff is cool. I like celebration, embracing the sport and making it fun again, like that, because that's what we should do. Like even adults and children, like if this is sport, have fun with it, right? I don't want it to be so. That's part of the problem with a lot of the sport, but also the other problem that I see in our society is other than that we can't have fun. Like you can't. There's NFL is called the No Fun League for a reason. But other than you can't have fun in the sport, also the structure. Like I said, they don't have the structure to where the players aren't just allowed to act a fool. Like even though I like AI and I like Allen Iverson, him saying talk about practice, like I don't gotta go to practice, whatever. Like that whole mentality and that kind of stuff translating to broader, broadening across the sport is definitely a detriment and a sign of what society is going to be like. When you have players saying, what we're talking about practice, I don't have to go to practice, like that kind of stuff is a symptom of what society is going to. And whether you can like that direction to say, hey, maximum freedom, he shouldn't have to practice if he's good enough. Okay, that's your opinion, but that definitely is a sign and a symptom of what the culture is going to do at a broader scale. Like if you have players, that's what I'm getting at, is like those kind of things. LeBron doesn't necessarily have to go to practice if he doesn't want to, because he's superstar. No one will care. He'll take the fine. None of that matters to them. They can skirt all these lines of what would be discipline in the sport, and just go about their business.
That takes us to a word that Carlos had used in hierarchy, and every sport has it. Regardless of what sport you're playing, there is always this sort of unspoken hierarchy within the team. Like since we've been talking about football, quarterback is always the most important thing, right? Like he's put on the top of the pedestal every single time. But then the thing that you start to look at, and like you talked about AI may have been the best scorer, just flat out put the ball in the hole scorer the NBA has ever
seen. Behind Kobe.
I mean, arguably. But he never won a championship. He only made it to one championship. His team was good at best most years. That they had the one championship run, but other than that, they were always just a good team. When that's what's leading you, that's kind of what you get. And so that's where I was kind of waiting for this conversation to start to go, was like you can have the pinnacle quarterback that is the best you've ever seen. But if you don't have all those pieces around him, like there are 10 other pieces on the field just to make him successful. And then once he's off the field, I was thinking about this earlier. Like, look at Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford put up 4,000-yard passing years multiple times while he was in Detroit. He put up gaudy, massive offensive numbers. He and Calvin Johnson, just year in and year out, would light up scoreboards. And they were a perennial basement dweller because the other side of the ball couldn't stop anybody ever. Like, so when you look at sports, you have that hierarchy. You have the ones who are at the top, and then it kind of filters down. But sports functions in the way that we would like to see society function, in that if you don't have everybody through that tree actually doing their job, then it doesn't matter how good the guy at the top is, because if you don't have that support structure, it falls apart.
I mean, look at the Golden State Warriors. Like, like Steph Curry is great. Okay, I'm not gonna discount like what quality of player Steph Curry is, but he is. I don't like LeBron, but he is nowhere near the caliber of player that LeBron is. You don't have him capable of exploding to the rim at any moment. You don't have him capable, like, he doesn't have all the tools available to him. Like, he's mostly a 3-point shooter. That is his primary role and function. And he can pass well. Those are his two primary functions: shooting and passing. Like, he can't maneuver to the basket as well. He's not, he doesn't have the strength to be able to finish. He doesn't have a lot of those tools. But whenever you have other players that are part of that team, part of that squad that can fill that gap, and that whole unit of Golden State Warriors basketball team is cohesive enough, they can beat LeBron and whatever other big three superstars that they have on the Lakers team or whatever. They can stomp them like 40 points, like beat them by 40 points, no matter what. Just because they're a more cohesive unit. Because Steph Curry knows he's going to pass the ball, he's going to shoot threes. He might get a layup every now and then. That's about it. But he's not trying to be the big guy. He's not trying to do any of the other things that LeBron has to do. LeBron has to be a presence at the rim. He has to be the point guard sometimes. He has to be it all. Like, LeBron has to take over more of the roles, and as such, he always ends up bearing more of the brunt of the responsibility when they lose.
I think the point here is that in order for you to win a championship, you've got to have one of the best, particularly in basketball now. And Carlos, you can speak to soccer more so than I ever could. But in basketball, like, you're going to need one of the probably top 7 to 8 players in the league year in, year out, in order for you to be in the championship discussion. And then on top of that, you're probably going to need at least like one and probably 2 other all-stars to surround that that top 10 player, so to speak. So basketball is very star dependent, but that's not to say that it's entirely an individual game. And I think that's kind of the interplay here that we're trying to discuss is it entirely individual or is it entirely collective? And I think the beauty of basketball is that there is this weaving of both star power and collective cohesion.
Yeah, and earlier, Justin, when I had brought up the hierarchy, I had brought it up in terms of like how American football is, I guess, how would you say, like romanticized, right? Of the king and queen in high school. So like it's kind of like that, and it just keeps going. But to me, I don't know if in American football it always has to be the quarterback to me, but to me it's like the captain. Whoever the captain of a team is the chingon, right? I mean, he's the one that's everybody's gonna go down with the ship with, whatever the captain is. And so I don't know in American football. I'm assuming they have multiple captains, I guess. In soccer, there's always one on the field, the one that wears the band. I don't know how it is in basketball, but I'm assuming there's probably multiple captains and stuff. But the reason too on the hierarchy part, I bring that up for then the other side of my bit, which is like boxing, right? So like, if you want to just have the hierarchies fight each other, then you watch the Sport of Kings, right? Then you just watch 2 motherfuckers go at it. And then there is no more, even though there is, I understand, Justin, the team, the corner, the all of the fight promote, all of that stuff is part of the management to get you to that point. But when you're inside the ring, it's war. It's war. You know, I say that that boxing is the, what I say, boxing is the act of two sovereigns asking the state permission to kill each other without consequence. Right? So you know, when you go ask the state permission to kill the other guy, of course there's these rules, right? The state's gonna manage, right? You said, Trey, manage the rules to make sure nobody really gets injured. But you know, go ahead and kill each other, you know, in that ring. So you know, I tend to just stay in mostly in the realms of soccer, because I think that's also like the sport of kings as teams and the team format, and then boxing. But culturally, I do like that. So this is culture, right? Like now, like the influences of Latinos coming into the channels. I mean, you'll see some of these ratings on a lot of these like Liga MX and all that stuff, like doing better ratings than a lot of the normal sports that you would that America. I think that's good. I think that that is good for for the American culture. I think it's good that there's more football influences from the Latino side, or from the Premier League side, or the European side, and all of that mixing is going to be good for society, I think, because in football there's a lot of fairness involved. And I know sometimes it kind of gets a bad rap, like, oh, it's a soft sport and all that. I don't know, man. I mean, you know, you got a collapsed lung, you know, I mean, you know, it's not that soft, you know. So but I think culturally it's good that football is getting is starting to go to get a hold, and especially with the World Cup coming in 2026 here. I say that too, like, you know, I don't know if I'm sure you guys know all that stuff, like, oh, the new world order is coming, at old school Alex Jones shit. Hey, the new world order came in the form of the 2026 World Cup, right? Canada, United States, and Mexico are co-hosting the World Cup. Anybody's against immigration, let me tell you, man, there's going to be chingos of motherfuckers are going to come on visas and they ain't leaving, okay? So you know, hey, football is life, man. I'm telling you guys, man. I'm telling you right now. So, you know, that to me, football is a pace setter in life for culture. Around the world, it mostly is. It's not here yet, but it will be. And you know, I'm calling it early, and I want to be a part of that in the early side of it. You know,
Sounds like globalization to me, Carlos.
Jonathan mentioned something that I wanted to tie into the larger scope of this conversation. He talked about how, like with basketball specifically, but also, you know, I talked about the quarterback in football. Trey had talked about the really good pitcher in baseball. I'm not sure what the position would be in soccer or football exactly, but I know, like, everybody knows, like, Messi and Ronaldo, like the star players, like, you know, that dude who is the absolute, like, alpha dog player. So there is an interesting blend of, like, you have to have that alpha, right? You have to have that guy that sits at the top. But then you also have to have the people that play the other roles. Like in basketball, you've got to have a rim protector. You've got to have somebody that's, you know, that can lock down the paint. You've got to have that guy that, you know, that can pass the ball. The guys who set good screens, like, help other people get open. Like, you have to have people who do these different jobs. In football, it is truly a, like, if I was a defensive player primarily. I was a wide receiver and a safety, and safety is where I really was good. For a defense to work well, everybody has to go where they're supposed to go. Everybody has to know their job and do their job. And if somebody won't do their job, then the whole thing breaks down. We had a game that we were playing against a team that had a running quarterback, and the sole purpose of the corner was to step up and set the corner and force the quarterback when he would roll out. Right. When he would roll outside, the corner had to step up and force him to turn back so that we had linebacker coverage in the middle of the field. And the corner kept getting blown up by a pulling guard. And so he just started backing out and wasn't doing it. And then the quarterback is getting to the sideline every time. So they pull me from safety and make me go play corner. so that I can stand out there and get blown up every time by this guard. And I was like, why am I out here getting blown up by this guard every single time? And because that's my job, so I'm going to do it, but I don't like doing it. And my coach said, you have to step up and get blown up by that guard because it forces the quarterback to turn back to the middle of the field where we can cover him. Like, everybody has to do a job. And sometimes your job is just to get run the fuck over by some dude that outweighs you by 150 pounds. But, like, everybody has a job to do. And we're seeing a breakdown of that in society where in sports, everybody has their job. And for the unit to function properly, you have to do your job. If somebody misses a block, the quarterback's getting sacked, right? In society, everybody has that job. Like, we are all equal, even though we are not equal. Like, we all have equal importance in society, but some people are up here and some people are down here. But that doesn't change how important they are to the function of society. Same as the left guard is arguably just as important as that quarterback, because if he doesn't get his block, that quarterback's eating shit all night long. So I wanted to kind of, that's kind of the direction I wanted to take it, is how are we seeing not only the breakdown of society, but in modern organized sports, we're seeing a breakdown of that organized structure as well. You're seeing it more and more, especially at the professional level, but it's starting to trickle down even into like even at the junior high level. Now, my son played junior high football a few years ago, and the coaches put very little emphasis on teaching all of the players how to play their role, and just focused on like a quarterback and two receivers and tried to like play air raid ball. I'm like, this is the worst fucking coaching I've ever seen in my life. If this is what they're doing at the high school level, I really don't want my son to play.
But isn't it then that it's not then it is the coaches or the managers? I mean, to me, when I watch football or even like over here in Texas Cowboys, right? The ownership and the general man, they're just having fun. They're owners and they get to do that. They haven't hired the best people and the best people to do the general management of the Cowboys or whatever team. Like, they think they can do it, and so that's their shit. That's their team. You can't do that. Like in world football, or even like in basketball too. Like, I always remember that my dad would say, "Oh, it's why do they fire the coaches? It's the players." And when I was younger, I would have, okay, that just seemed like, okay, yeah, that's right. But as I got older and you start taking leadership roles, or in business and different things, and yeah, it's about who can manage egos and professionals, and that has a bigger role than probably the captain or there's definitely some tension, of course. LeBron or these players, or depending on what sport, they're gonna have a lot of leverage over who the coach is or whatever. But
you're still playing into the point that I'm making, because like, we're seeing that breakdown in the athletic level the same way that we're seeing it in the societal level. And it's easy to look at on the sporting level and say, yeah, like the coaches or the managers, the GMs, the league, the league, it's what's pushing this. What's doing it societally? Why are we seeing that same parallel between the breakdown of hierarchies in sports and the breakdown of hierarchies in actual society in our day-to-day lives?
Let's look at some specific examples. Let's look at the Brooklyn Nets and their off season and all of their dysfunction. Okay. Kyrie Irving, didn't play all of last year. And I actually agree with him. But Kevin Durant came out and said, you know what? I'm not coming back, and I'm not playing for the Nets unless you get rid of the coach, Steve Nash, and the general manager, who I believe Bobby Marks.
And they're ready to do it. Like, they're willing and ready. They're just like, okay, if we can keep KD, like, it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah, but as it turned out, they didn't end up firing the coach and the GM. But what it did communicate here is that, okay, not just that, but we've also seen these superstars manipulate trades and basically say, "I want to go play over there," with this player, and the GMs basically then have to, manage the salary caps and so forth. So the point of all of this is that what we are seeing here is that there is a breakdown of hierarchy. Okay, the managers, the coaches, the front offices often are not really, they are in control, but they have to cater to the wishes of these star players. And so the question now becomes, well, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? On one hand, you could say, well, it's the players that are generating all of the revenue. It's Kevin Durant that makes the Nets, competitive each year. Why should he not have, this type of say so? And so, to answer your question, Justin, how does this mirror or reflect, perhaps, our American culture today? And what I would say is that we are seeing definitely a widening gap of rich and poor. The elimination of the middle class. Those who have a lot, and those who do not have very little. And the same, I think, is becoming true, in sports, particularly with players. Now, this analogy is not perfect, but I think that you can see, where it is that I'm going here, with this, which is, the people or the players that have power, they have all of the power and they have all of the say so.
Yeah, and I think this is this is I had a direct experience with this. I believe during my tenure, like playing high school basketball, because what we would have is we had our hierarchy, of players who seniors would get to play. They would be starting, and prior to that, like it would be structured in a certain way. Seniors get to start, and then they'd be given the time that they deserve to be. They've worked their way through the system. They'll play as starters, and then if you're if you're a good player who's a sophomore or junior, then you can be on that team, and then you'll get subbed in, and there was a sort of rotational structure there to that. But it seems like my coach in high school, he usurped all of that by basically just saying, the football stars, because everybody will actually come and watch the basketball games because of the football stars. He decided that those football stars just automatically usurp the basketball players. I played basketball and I ran cross country and track, and I stayed in there. I was in the gym all of the time. Even the janitor after I left the high school, I came back one time, and he talked to me. He said, "Hey, you were a good you were a good player. Like I don't know why coach didn't like he didn't never play me. He literally put me on the court one time. I missed one layup, and I was gone. But the hierarchy was very different for how the this other freshman quarterback or whatever comes out here from the football team, and now he can just do whatever he wants. Like he can miss 30 shots. He had free reign. The coach let him do whatever, say whatever, swear at everybody. Punch other people, and he had ultimate free reign because of the way that coach coached. Do you know how many games we won? Very few, very few. That's how many. Like I think maybe we got 10 wins out of a 50 game season or
So,
whatever.
so are you agreeing with me from a little while ago that football culture isn't that good? That your coach still felt the weight of that culture of American football, of having to look at those players as hierarchy just because what? Just because they play American football? It wasn't right. It wasn't right.
That's part of it, but I think it was more of he was looking at it from a numbers perspective. How much he was very much calculated on based on how much did you donate and suck up to the coach. If you donated and you sucked up to him, that got you higher in the hierarchy. It was not about there was no metric of how you performed.
Meritocracy.
Yeah, there was no meritocracy. And this is, I posted a tweet the other day, we don't live in a meritocratic society anymore. Like if you can market yourself as a good player, like if you could show yourself a highlight reel of you being, incredible at playing, and then all of a sudden, get that sent off to a college, I guarantee that it doesn't matter like what low level school, if you had, awesome plays, and you market yourself well, and you have this whole thing, social media presence. There was even this movie that I just watched the other night called Hustler. I don't know if you've seen that. It's on Netflix. The guy he gets on an NBA team, and I like the story generally speaking, but he gets on social media, and he's showing how he's dunking over people, doing all this stuff on social media, and then he's able to get into the NBA draft. But that's what I'm saying is it's no longer a meritocracy. You don't have to go through any systems. You don't have to put in the work. Because all these football players, like in the system that I was talking about in my high school basketball, they would come in there, they would have 2 weeks of practice. We had already been practicing for 2 to 3 weeks ourselves. We'd already been through everything. We were already, following all this stuff. But they would come in there, most of them wouldn't be able to do the drills. They can't keep up. We do sprints across the court. They can't keep up. They're slow as molasses. And then all of a sudden they're in the starting lineup. They're out there, and then okay, well now we're gonna go throw them out there and let them play. He was a terrible coach for this, and that's what I'm saying. Like he was running it like many of the coaches that I think run it in America now. That they view it as, okay, can I get a star? Can I get the marketable revenue from the players who everybody knows? Especially if they're in on both the basketball and the football team. Basically that way ensure this sort of revenue source, ensure that we have the star players and pull everybody that we can. And that's it doesn't matter whether they're good or not. That's just the hierarchy is revenue and star power.
I do remember this one video where Coach Pop went to Europe to do a class for European coaches. And I watch it every once in a while when I'm all fucked up. I'll go watch it just to go see what's up. Because even though we're speaking of the breakdown of culture, when I hear the breakdown of culture for somebody that thinks being on the front foot, right? Whether it's in boxing or soccer, right? I'm thinking there's an opportunity for people that want to build an organization that's going to easily be better than most of them. Because if culture is breaking down over there, well, then you're going to race to the top faster. So in that video, he's basically telling all these coaches, hey, you know what? I'm not here to tell you the X's and O's. You guys know all that shit. I'm not here to. I'm telling you here how you build an organization, and you do with people of character, people that are coachable, people that are willing to see that where the superstar or everybody sees the superstar just like the other people. He goes, you build that type of culture in your organization, then all the X's and O's come alive. They come alive as the way they look on the board. They're gonna come alive on the court. So
that was always a nice thing with Pop was Tim Duncan said it regularly. He knew he was going to get yelled at for fucking up just the same way as the 15th guy on the bench. He had that culture of there was a very real hierarchy of who was of importance as far as what everybody did in terms of their role on the team. But at the same time, you had that guy at the very top, the one who was running it, and everybody was equal. It is a true organization of equality. Whether you are the Tim Duncan or the 15th guy on the bench, you are all to some extent the same under that leadership.
And the hierarchy is the idea of integrity and character of the person. That is the hierarchy. The people that manage it, that's just they need to create a culture and a system, and then the system starts running itself. And then you try to influence other coaches. I know Jonathan knows how much Pop has influenced the league through the way that he's done the coaching, and probably anybody that runs through the Spurs organization understands that. And then he's creating a culture beyond the Spurs, so he's basically trying to influence all of the NBA in that way. But anyway, yeah, that's that's Coach Pop. I had a front.
We
saw that up front.
I heard this story a while back when I was, I guess you could say, training to be a coach. I was learning to be a coach. I was doing a lot of reading, going to coaching clinics. And I remember this story about John Wooden, the legendary coach at UCLA. And one of those years he had Bill Walton, on his team. And Bill was famous for having bad knees. And, it would get, in the middle of the season, and he would miss practice. He would go right to the training table, after school, and he would get treatment. And, there would be ice, ice his knees, and, whatever it was. And once he got the question, I don't know if it was from a player or maybe from an outside person, because, Wooden was real big on some of the things that we're, talking about right here, which is, if you get a chance to, Google Pyramid of Success, it's one of the most famous things that any basketball coach is put together. And he talks about all these traits and virtues, that are necessary for a successful team to happen. But anyhow, the question was, how is it fair, that Bill Walton, star player, All-American and everything, he doesn't have to go to practice, but yet, his backup has to, run sprints and, and everything. And Wooden responded, he said, "We don't treat everybody equally, but we treat them fairly." Okay. And I think that that's a really important point right here when we're talking about, a society, when we're talking about a culture. If we are trying to treat everyone equally, there is going to be unfairness. Okay. It's actually going to create it's going to create more harm than it is good. But I think that any good culture, any good society, any good team will focus upon fairness, and fairness is not always equality.
Yeah, well, I think like even between like my family or your family, like I'm going to choose my family over like you and your family, like that. Mm-hmm. That's that. We're treating each other differently. That's unequal. Like these things are going to be fundamentally unequal in our treatment of each other person. And you have to mitigate all of that, and that's sort of where I think that some of the coaching has failed in a lot of especially in youth sports. A lot of the youth sports, I think that the coaching fails because they treat it they treat it unequally, but it's not in the way that they should. So like like you were saying, Bill Walton is a star player. Yes, he should have a little bit preferential treatment, but it's much more weighted on now about like a nepotistic society, and that's what in my tweet I said, instead of meritocracy, now we're having a nepotistic society, which is labeling itself as a meritocratic society. Like, oh, I got here because I was good, but it was really because your dad knew the coach and sucked up to the coach and win the back alley with him, and then all of a sudden now you're going to be the starter on the team. And that's sort of where we're at now with this sort of coaching, and that's why coaches kids is a sort of thing. Like people will become coaches so that their kid can be the starter, be the star, and then they don't have the same obligation to the other players to uplift them and teach them and try to drive them to be developmentally good at the sport and develop the discipline that they need in their life.
Yeah, at every level, the coaching part is different, right? Like, when you say kids, I mean, they're kids, right? I mean, but yes, it is not good for the parent to favor the kid, but also, you like my nephew plays in a flag football team, and he sucks. I mean, he's just playing around. He'd rather go gaming and shit. But yeah, the head coach is the kid is the quarterback, right? So then you can just tell that is in there. I don't know if it's bad or not. I guess when they take advantage of it, I know that when I and when I say every coach has a different responsibility for what they're doing. Like when I had my beer league teams, it didn't take me long just because I was outspoken when before I would take over a team. Like if I went in as just like as a player, automatically, just because I was vocal on the field, they would just kind of say, "Oh, hey man, you want to be the man? You want to just have the team?" And then I would have the team, and I just remember everybody. But at that time, to be a manager for a beer league, it wasn't about for me for winning. It was about everybody that showed up should at least get to play sometime to have fun for showing up and stuff like that. So my responsibility as a leader of the team wasn't necessarily to win. It was about making sure that anybody that is leaving their family or friends or waking up on a Sunday todo crudo, all fucked up, hungover, that they're going to get some time to at least sweat it out, or to play and all that. I remember a lot of these guys, they'll come up to me and, they're grown men, and I was younger than them, and man, you're doing a real good job. We like, and it got to a point where like on the second or third season, because they respected me, I gained their respect, where then I was then able to start actually doing the X's and O's and the strategic and a little bit of that, and we made the playoffs. Man, that felt good, but it wasn't about that. That stuff came easier later. So again, man, I don't know. It's probably about a little bit about the character of the person, even the person that is even if they're given that responsibility to be the manager, if they don't, if they don't have some leadership qualities a little bit, or when people are given leadership qualities when maybe they're not ready for that, or maybe that's where the breakdown comes down a little bit. I mean, I don't know, Justin, like, I know you're talking about the breakdown. Maybe the breakdown is that there's people giving leadership roles when that's not part of their nature, and to me, shit, you give me a leadership role, man, I'll fucking roll. I thought, it doesn't mean that I want it or whatever. It just comes easy for me to see the organization and who needs to do this, to do that, so we can all be successful and shit like that. And then, hey, the Christmas party, we're all gonna fucking party, or whatever the fuck, so it just comes easy to me, but not for everybody. And then people fuck it up, and then there you go.
I remember my first experience with seeing things breaking down on like the coach's kid type of things, or the parents who are the most vocal type of things. It was the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, and I was at the gym every day. I was going to be a good basketball player, whether my body wanted to cooperate with me or not. I was going to will it into it, and because I was at the gym every day, they had a 4th, 5th, and 6th grade basketball league that was going on, and one of the guys who was coaching, his work schedule got changed, and he asked if I would pick up his team for him and coach it because I was always there. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like that's fine. Plus, these are the kids who are going to be going into the junior high program at our school. Like, these are going to be the next kids who are coming up into the high school program in a few years. And I know the junior high coaches, I know what they expect from their players. So we're going to run a similar type of a program, and I'm going to try to prep these 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to be ready for junior high ball, so that they learn junior high ball and they're ready for high school ball, right? Well, the other coaches, there was one that he had like the stud star player in the league, and they just did whatever that kid wanted. There was another one that his son was the point guard, and so he just run his point guard, or let his son like run wild. I had a kid that, as a 6th grader, he had played on the 8th grade team the year before, and he was a good player. He would not get with the program. He would not do what I said. So I put his ass on the bench, and I said, you're going to sit here until you decide you want to play our game. And next rotation of kids came and went, and I put all the other ones in, and he sat right there. And the next rotation came and went, and he sat right there. And his whole family is screaming and cussing me out because I won't put him in. And finally, as I walked by, he reached out and he grabbed my shorts, and he said, I'll play your way. I never had another problem out of him. 3 years later, I was coaching high school baseball, and he tried out for the baseball team. And whatever I asked him to do, if I needed him to lay down a bunt, he would lay down a bunt. If like whatever he was asked to do, he did it, because he understood that this is the way we play. And you have a higher importance to your team to play for the team, not to just play for yourself. And that's lost in youth sports. I coached my kids' leagues for several years. And there was one team that whoever the star player on the team was, and I coached against this guy 3 years in a row. Whoever the star player on his team was, He put that kid out there and just let that kid run wild the whole game. And they would do well because it's, little kid basketball. If there's one kid that's a lot better than all the rest, he's going to do well. I rotated kids out. We tried to run good defenses. We tried to run like basic offenses to learn good fundamental principles of the game. That team, other than the one kid who's doing everything, nobody else on that team is learning how to actually play basketball. They're learning how to stand around and give that kid the ball and watch him play. Like, it doesn't build your team. It doesn't build your culture.
Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I was able to coach, like a 5-year-old team, like, these kids are 5 or whatever, but they it was interesting to watch because, I didn't experience nearly the pressure that the older kids experience because, then when they're older, they obviously, like you said, they have expectations like parents have. When they're younger, not as much. They do want their kid to play, but they're not like expecting them to just go in there and score a lot. Obviously they lower these goals and everything. But when I'm coaching these 5-year-olds, I just happened to notice that one of the players was better. And, just sometimes I would encourage them, like, hey, pass it to him. He's open. He can go score it. And I mean, and then this kid could ball at, 5 years old. Like, he's already, he's going through there. He's dribbling down there pretty well. Like, I didn't really have to teach him too much. And he's just dribbling down there and he goes up and, and lays it in the goal and just does that, over and over again. I mean, the kid scored a ton and we ended up getting second in that league. And honestly, if he had just, been able to hit a couple more shots, we probably would have won the championship. But, it was difficult for me because, I had to kind of pull myself back because, I'm a different perspective, being the coach, than a player. But I was definitely trying to look at it and try to be like, okay, well, how does this system work and how does it rotate and how does it manage with all these different kids and how they play and trying to make sure that we have a system in place where I could try to corral some 5-year-olds to pass the ball back and forth to each other. And it just seemed to work, but it was because I definitely wasn't trying to like tell them like, hey, this kid is the only kid you pass the ball to. Just pass it to him and he's going to score it. I told him, hey, pass it. Like, they get on, another kid gets on them and pass it. And that was kind of the strategy, I guess, was like, okay, if I can teach these kids to pass the ball and we have one good kid who is really good at scoring the ball, eventually they're going to pass it to him and he's going to be able to score the ball. Like that was, but like that has to come naturally. Like you can't force it. And I think what we're seeing with a lot of this is a forced structure of this player is the star. We're going to force him. He's going to be the only thing that we pass the ball to. Like we pass the ball to him every time, and then he's going to run the whole system itself. Like the coach is irrelevant. It doesn't matter anymore. It's about star player and what pieces we can have on the board as far as the players, not necessarily about the structure of the system of the basketball program itself. And I think that's where some of this is coming into play.
One thing that we've identified here, and I'll just point out the irony, is that some of us on this this chat right here might be more inclined for a less democratic society, maybe more towards a hierarchical I guess you could say whether it's monarchy or ruled by the aristocrats, which is what it really is anyhow. Natural elites. There we go. We have all experienced a situation in which we felt like we have been mistreated by the leader that Trey, you've talked about it with your coach, and Justin, you alluded to it. And guess what? When I was in high school, I felt like my coach my junior year misplayed me. And in retrospect, I was probably very immature. And then guess what? I get that dose of medicine back 10 times when I was a coach, because I had to kick off players, and I had players that thought that they were all state, and they weren't getting with the program, so I ran players off, good players and mediocre players all the same. And so I guess what I would just like to paint right here is that a society is only going to be as good as the leaders that it has. I think the tendency a lot of times is that when we have bad leaders, we want to democratize it, or we want to say, well, let's take a vote, one of those type of things. And the moment in which it gets to, this mob mentality, it's already, it's just a matter of time before the whole system breaks down, which is not to say that you can have a good society or even a good team, when you have a bad leader or a bad elite. So all of this is really predicated upon, natural elites, natural leadership that is competent. And if they're not competent, if they can't do the job, they're going to be replaced, or they should be replaced. And generally in sports, there's only so many 5-win seasons that you're going to be able to endure, whether it's your fault or not as a coach, before you are replaced. And I think the same goes, for a society that is, coming apart at the seams in various ways. So I just wanted to point that little bit of irony out.
I'm gonna be pretty soon making a move on whether I want to coach my kids. Well, my daughter, she's gonna turn 5, and I don't know if I want to be a coach for her. I don't know if I can just sit. I'm about to enter the realm that you guys have been into a little bit. I've coached the beer league stuff, and that's it, man. It's just for fun and all that. But it's gonna be interesting to see how I play it. In those leagues, you're just not also managing the little kids, you're managing the parents, so I would know that right off the bat, that the parent is putting so much into. There's some parents that think that their kids are gonna, when they don't know what it really takes to be like an elite player that makes it professional and all that shit, and they're thinking that they have a ticket to who knows, man, but who knows what they're thinking. But for sure, from my perspective is I'm gonna make it fun, that the kids are gonna be engaged. If I have a team, the kids are gonna be engaged, because at the end of the practice, we have to do some shit that's fun, that keeps them wanting to come to practice, to make sure that even though they're gonna trust me I'm gonna have to actually almost get to their level of, like, I don't know, I've thought of different ideas, but I've thought like fun ideas where they bring me down a notch at the end of the to so I can just look at them right in the eyes in a way, and then they'll trust me. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this shit, but like I am I don't know if I want to do it yet, because what happens if my daughter sucks, and then if she sucks, well then of course if I start something like a league, not a league, a team, or as a coach or whatever, yeah, I'm gonna finish it off. I'm gonna finish it off because I entered it. But then you have to manage it different, and then I have to then it goes into if a kid sucks or not, but then just teach them to be good, a good little kid of character, and all that stuff. Like Justin's story about that kid, he was good at sports, but then he learned something important. It'd be interesting to know, Justin, whatever happened to that kid, if he still remembers you and remembers some of that shit that you push back on. But so I'm gonna enter that world. So for sure on my podcast, I'll be definitely talking about some of that as I get into that. Some of the same kids that are the same age. Some of the parents have asked, like, oh, are you going to do it? Or, hey, I'm already coaching a team. You want to coach? You want to bring your daughter over here? And I'm just like, no, I'm going to wait and see, but I have a lot of responsibility. I built a fucking stadium in my backyard, man. So like, I have a lot of like responsibility to be like, okay, like, hey, you have the facility to practice. Your kid should be good or not. I ain't going to put that kind of pressure on my daughter. I just want her to be a good person.
It is tough when your kid ends up sucking. my son, God bless him, he is not super athletic, at least not basketball wise. He is a natural baseball player, but from a basketball perspective, he's tall, he's big, he should have like everything that you would expect. He is no good at all, and it sucks. It hurts a little bit, but I don't treat him, when he was playing, I didn't treat him any different than the other kids who also sucked. Like we're all trying to learn together. and some kids learn and some kids don't, and it's a tough it's kind of a tough thing to come up against. I got the unique opportunity to coach a homeschool league team here for a couple years, and the second year we had a set of twins that when we started the season they couldn't throw a beach ball in the ocean, and by the end of the season they could get the beach ball in the ocean every once in a while. Like they were still not, they weren't sinking any 3-pointers, but they could hit a layup, at least half the time. And that was a huge accomplishment. And I would have other kids, and they played on the JV, and I'd have other kids on the JV that'd be like, we could win this game. Like, why do you have them in? Why aren't we in? Like, well, number one, it's a JV game. I don't care if we win or not. You're going to play in the varsity game. They're not. I want them to get game experience and to learn. And the great thing about those kids is I would ask them after the game, like, all right, what did we do well? And what did we suck at? And those kids knew. They knew what they did wrong every time. Like, they could tell you, well, I had this and I missed this. I had this defensive assignment and I lost my guy. Like, they knew what they did. So they were learning. Like, they were growing. It was coming together up here, even if it wasn't coming together on the court, and that's what you want to see. Is you want to see that improvement with the kids, whether they're it's baby steps with that caliber of a player. And then you have higher expectations for the varsity. Like, if the varsity is missing those same things, well, then we have other problems. Like, now we've got to start looking at personalities and egos. I had a kid that it was the end of a close game and he was my best scorer. And I set him on the bench for the last 4 minutes of the game because he wouldn't play defense. He's like, and his dad got mad at me and he didn't play the following year because of it. His dad kept him off the team because I wouldn't play him in that game. Like, he doesn't play defense. Like, okay, he scores every time down court. He's letting his guy score when they come back. We have to have stops or we're not going to make up the point differential here. So I don't care how good a scorer he is. He will not put forth any effort to play defense. And until he shows me that he is willing to put forth effort to play defense, he's going to sit on the bench because he's a liability on the court. And some kids and some parents can't accept that. And so you'll be the bad guy in that case. And, it's one of those things that you have to learn to live with. And I think going back to the societal thing, if in society, Jonathan had talked about this earlier, like the ones who are the loudest and the most out, the most forthright about everything, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so to speak. In society, that's what we're seeing now. Is the ones who are the loudest get their way. Like, nobody's willing to stand up and say, "I'm sorry, but you're loud.
Sorry, go sitting on the bench." Like,
yeah, the things you're doing are wrong. Like, it's terrible that you feel like you've been, that you're being oppressed or whatever, but such is life. Like,
what, man?
Unless you're willing to change your behavior as well to make it a better situation for yourself, then you just need to go sit on the bench. And we don't have the natural elites. We don't have the leaders who are willing to say that. It's whoever makes the most noise is going to get whatever they want, so they'll shut up.
And that's sort of like what I was describing, the situation that I got to see play out, live is these, these parents will come and they'll whine and they get their way and they can just usurp the whole order of everything because then, the coach doesn't have to listen. But as far as it goes, the sports, the reason that they're so integrated, especially into American culture, is because they used to really have a primary function of teaching children discipline. And once you can get the children disciplined, then they can branch off, they can be creative, they can do whatever, but they need that discipline first to have some grounding in some sort of reality. And there are other ways to get that discipline. I know, like, if they're very good at music and they want to be part of the band, that's another way to be disciplined. But if you have things like, even like the band, if the band breaks down, all of a sudden the band members are walking on the field, and one person decides that they want to run forward, and they knock the other tuba player down, and all of a sudden you have this whole catapult of people falling on the field. That's a completely different thing, but it's still the same concept of discipline. And it's something like that I've been having trouble with my son, because he does want to talk back, he does want to act out. He's 4 years old, and I understand that. I have to manage my expectations, but whenever I'm trying to go out there and I'm trying to throw him a ball, the kid can't catch anything. Oh my, he can't catch anything. Like, I know he's 4, but I have seen 4-year-olds who can, like, they're full on, like, they look like pro baseball players. So I mean, this kid just can't catch. I don't know. Have to keep working on it though. But it's discipline about it. It's getting him out here and teaching him. Okay, we're gonna do it again. And he doesn't like it. He gets really upset about it sometimes. But I tell him, no, like, we need to stop. We're gonna try. You're gonna get over there. I'm gonna roll the ball to you. You're gonna catch it, and you're gonna be prepared. And that's just continuing that cycle of getting that discipline down. Like, okay, we're gonna go through these drills. We're gonna do this thing, and it's some standard of expectation that for both them and for me, because then it puts me in the situation of like managing myself too, which I don't always do a good job of. But it's something you have to manage yourself, and it's a teaching and learning lesson for both of us.
Yeah, Trey makes a great point about the discipline aspect of sports. My father told me, I can remember him telling me this at an early age. American life, or even like pre-industrial life, kids were on the farm. We live in an agrarian society, so they would have chores. Milking the cows, cleaning up the brush from around the house and so forth. So there were things that they had to do to be disciplined and understand, how to make their household or their homestead, work and be successful. But once we became so automated as a society, there was this gap. And so sports is really, really important for our youth. I believe that because, these kids need to have something to teach them, like you were talking about, these virtues, of discipline, of teamwork, of honoring leadership, so to speak. Like, if the coach tells you to do something, you do it, even if you disagree with it. There's a time and a place where you have to, honor what an adult tells you to do. And and unfortunately, because some of our youth sports have become corrupted because it has become all about winning, and it's become all about the glorification of somebody's ego in some instances, that really spoils the experience for a lot of kids. So what I would say is that at very early ages, obviously I don't think that winning should be the be all end all. But also, like, to be competitive is the point of sports. And so that there is a fine balance between, we want to play the game, but we're not going to, just corrupt everything, so that we can, win a medal or something, because there is value in playing a role, and not every kid is going to be the star kid. And it's, by the time you get into high school and you start playing varsity basketball, like, all of that equal playing time's out the door, because you're playing to win. And there's value in learning that sometimes I'm the best at one sport, and then other times, like, I'm not very good, so I'm being the good teammate. And having those varied experiences, I think is important. So I'm curious as to what you guys think about that.
Well, what I would say is that I didn't, discipline wasn't very much pushed when I was in youth sports, but what was pushed was learning how to win and lose. So in learning how to win and lose, it really just taught me that, you win some, you lose some. And it was okay if you lost, as long as you tried your best, And you know what? Discipline wasn't very, it's almost like if, man, I don't know. I'd have to ask my dad, like, why didn't you really teach me how, because I probably could have been better if I had more discipline in a lot of my skills. I was good at soccer, but I could have been better. When I see these videos of what these kids are doing now to get better, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to, nobody, forced me to do all that shit. I just was I guess I was just taught, like, if you won, you always respected your opponent. You always told them good game. You always told, and if you lost, you respected your opponent. You always tell them good game, and that was emphasized more to me. I don't know. As I was listening to you talking, I was trying to gather my thoughts. I was trying to think, like, what that did for me in life, and or how it built me as a person. And I guess what came to my thinking was just that, I don't know, man. I guess it just meant that that being the underdog made victory just taste a lot better, man. I don't know, man. Like, the underdog story for me. So if I knew I was on the team that was supposed to lose, man, it made me just be more competitive. So my dad didn't tell me be more competitive, just by learning how to win and lose. Then I would just put myself, if I was in the losing team, then, or if I was in the team that should lose, it just made me more competitive. So I don't know, man. I mean, and that competition still goes to now. So, like, I'm always very competitive about everything. So it probably just fed into my natural way of just being competitive, just to learn how to win and lose. And if I was on the side that was probably favored, then I was gonna try to be a good winner, or win the game. And if I lost, then I would be like, man, shit, I would, you guys beat the top ones, man. Like, man, you guys are fucking feeling good, right? Well, I feel good for you that you feel good. That's good for you, man. Like that. You guys fucking beat us, man, and we, we were favored. Good shit, man. That's good on you, and it makes everybody better, So I guess, discipline wasn't forced, but just learning how to win and lose, like literally learning how to win and lose, and that was more emphasized. So I don't know, man. I just freestyled a little bit.
There is something to be said for that, because a lot of kids these days don't get the experience of losing. Losing is a valuable teacher. Or it should be anyway, and that's something that in today's society,
more valuable than winning, because if you from your losses, actually, I think was it a Teal speech that I was listening to, or something like that. It sounds like something that would be out of a Teal speech, but basically, like, you're going to learn much more from your failures than your successes, because you're going to have more failures in life. And so those kind of learning circumstances, you're going to take away a lot more from losing than you are winning, because all winning taught you, like, the act of winning, it taught you that you were better than the other people, and that's all that it said, is I'm better, or our team is better than the other team. It doesn't teach you, well, what mistakes did I make, how did I execute poorly on this. There's no greater, teacher than the act of losing and failure.
And I watched a lot of tape, like, being able to look at your own mistakes and your own failures, and to find what you did wrong. I think for me, that created that discipline, because I wanted to be better. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to, like, I wasn't going to get burned on that same coverage the next time. I was going to know what that lineup looked like. And like, for me, as a safety, if the ball is in the air, it's either mine or it's nobody's. There are no completed passes when I'm on the field. I think I was tied for first in the region for interceptions, and first for total takeaways. Like, if the ball is up, it's my ball. You don't get passes on me. And, like, creating that competitive edge, but also, like, creating that discipline. I played college basketball. You have to be disciplined for that. At least, when I was playing, you did. It's definitely a different game these days. But and I tried to explain that to my last year coaching the homeschool league. I had a couple kids that were very good. They probably could have played like D3 ball or NAIA ball. And they asked me about it. They were like, what do we need to do to play? It's like, well, you're going to have to be more disciplined. You're lazy and sloppy. Like, we practice 3 days a week. If you go play at the collegiate level, you practice 6 days a week, and you have study hall twice a week, and you have weights once a week. And like, your practices are not an hour and a half long like ours are. They're 2 or 3 hours long. Like, you have to be disciplined. You have to get your cardio up. You have to hit the gym and start lifting weights. And you have to find a regimen that you are doing these things every single day. Because once you get to that level, you don't have a choice. You're going to be doing them every single day. And they didn't want to do it. Like, that was too much. Practice 3 days a week was too much for them. They definitely weren't committed to that level of discipline. And I mean, it's a shame, but I see that more and more with the younger generation today. And maybe it is because it's a different game than what it was when I played. But at the end of the day, you still have to have that level or a level of high-end discipline to go beyond. Like, once you get from this level to this one, you have to be more disciplined. You have to be more committed. And to get from this level to this one, you have to be even more so. And and that's something that has to come from within. It's like, I can't force them to do that. They have to have the willingness and the desire to do that. And in society, I think these days there's a lot less of a willingness and a desire to do it, and more of a be that squeaky wheel and get the grease.
Do you think, Justin, that learning how to win and lose, if that comes first, the discipline comes next, or does the discipline have to be first and then you learn how to win and lose? Because now I'm starting to figure out my philosophy for teaching these 5-year-old kids how to play. Now I'm trying to figure out. I'm asking you, what do you think? Is discipline first, or is it learn how to win and lose first?
I think for kids, it's going to be on an individual basis. Some kids are going to learn from and get more out of learning how to win and lose. And other kids, it's going to be, they need the discipline and the structure so that they can build from that. So it's like, you can't really boil that down to like one philosophy. It has to be and that's kind of the pop thing, right? Like, every player on that team was treated with an equal level of fairness, but it was a different thing for each of them, right? Like, he didn't manage Tony Parker the same way that he managed Tim Duncan, the same way that he managed Manu Ginobili, like this, or the same way that he was managing Bruce Bowen, or the
Steven Jackson.
Yeah, the guy at the end of the bench who would play, when he was giving all the rest of them the day off. Like, they're all being managed equally, but individually.
No, but hold on. But at the kid level, because remember, these kids, then we want them, they become characters in our society, right? I'm asking, like, what is more important at a 5-year-old level, to really teach them discipline or to teach them how to win and lose? Because what becomes on the, because you're not really trying to manage I know you're trying to manage every little kid differently.
At
but
that
not
age,
really, because they're just playing around, man. They're looking for fucking crickets, dude, on the floor.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're not
at that age. Teach them how to be good teammates.
Okay. I mean, then I was just asking,
if they can learn how to work together with each other and just get along, then you're gonna have wins and losses, and then you learn the lessons from those, and when when you start learning the lessons from those, then you learn how to be more disciplined. But teaching them how to be good teammates, which there is a level of discipline involved in being good teammates. So, they're going to, I guess maybe the discipline is going to go first to an extent, but yeah, teach them to be good teammates. And then once they are good teammates, they can be a cohesive unit to some extent, as much as 5-year-olds can. I mean, you're effectively herding cats, but to the extent that you can get those cats to go in the same direction, once you've got them doing that, then they build that together, and then the rest of that you can build on top of that.
Yeah, can I tell you guys a story about when I went into when I got interviewed by the FBI for having to
I know you were an illegal.
discuss when I had to discuss about oh no that's that's obvious, but though hey when my youth soccer coach ended up getting in trouble for embezzling money and all kinds of shit and all that stuff, right? But this is a funny story, man. I was good at soccer. You know what? I'm sure that you guys know this. Like, you were in one team in youth sports that played all the sports, right? It was what was it? Well, basically, it was just soccer, baseball, and basketball. Those were the three sports that at least that we played. And you played in the same team, right? And I was good at soccer. I didn't try to play baseball good. I enjoyed just talking shit from the bench, all that shit. Real quick. I was like, get up to bat. A little fucking kid hit me with the ball in the helmet. I was like, wait a minute, I gotta trust this motherfucker to not hit me in the head again? Nah, fuck all that shit. and then in basketball, there was just better players. Like, I really knew my role at an early age. I didn't, but my parents still go out there and stuff. And I guess they might have spoken up like, oh, why isn't my kid playing? I didn't tell them I wanted to play those sports. In soccer, I was the starter, right? Starter, the best player on the team, all that shit, all that stuff. But I guess the coach retaliated, and he didn't play me on a game. And my dad spoke up and said, hey, we get it over there, but like on this one, why are you benching him? And I guess the coach, that coach, he had the power, he had the hierarchy. He used his power and he benched me. True story, man. My parents then said, you know what, let's go, right? That was the end of that relationship with that coach. And with the coach that my dad testified in court for, for like later on, right? Yeah. Hey, Vato, hey, you don't talk to a Mexican unless, I'm bringing a novela, Vato. I'm telling you right now. So then I remember that day, right? Because we went then to the flea market, and that's when I got my brand new chrome lowrider bike, dude. Damn, that's what they bought me, dude, in middle school, right? A brand new lowrider bike, man. So I remember I just remember like, okay, my parents bought me a lowrider bike, and because they didn't want me to feel like, it was almost like they didn't want me to feel adult drama shit. Like they kind of isolated me from like, you know what, that was adult drama shit. You know what, let's get you a lowrider bike. Let's get you a lowrider bike. And they're like, hey, every time we go to HEB in the store, we always see you looking at those magazines, those lowrider magazines. I mean, I was really looking at those big old titties, on those lowrider magazines, but that's fine. But I remember that, right? So then later on, we found out that this guy's a contractor, and yeah, we start working with him. Like later on, I'm talking about 20 years later, and I do all this work for him. Yeah, it turned out that he wasn't a man of character, right? Even back then, he used his power to do this move to like go against the people that are speaking up a little bit against the I wouldn't say injustice of that I didn't get to fucking play, but I don't know, something, right? He used his power to do that. But yeah, man, we went to the FBI office, and because we were doing a lot of work for him, and they were like, how is he doing it? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, he pays us pretty good. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know how he's stealing all this money. Anyway, the coach that, I'm not surprised that the coach that did that back in the day ended up getting like 15 years in federal prison, right? I mean, I'm not surprised by that stuff. And then, and I feel bad because at that time I was more of a, I was more partying, like getting drunk, and my dad goes, I'm gonna go testify against the coach, and I was like, oh, I don't want to really go, and I feel bad that I didn't go because I didn't think about it back then that my dad was basically getting them back, for like the, for that shit, and anyway, I just side story, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we need better coaches in our society, right? That's basically, so it might not be about the players, really. The players are like subject to the coaches. The players are a product of the coaches. So like when we have these, like Trey had the coach that wasn't playing it fair, he probably saw some shit in his life that wasn't fair. And we need better coaches, better managers of people and all that. But yeah, like Justin, like that. I mean, I'm really interested to know whatever happened to that kid, man. That one you said that you taught him. I mean, If you tell me that Vato's in jail, then you didn't do good enough. Man.
I do know. So I haven't seen or talked to him in probably 15 years. He graduated high school and went to college, not on a athletic scholarship. Like he did well in school and went to college. So I'm going to assume he turned out all right. Like he.
That's important, man. He probably didn't forget that. He won't forget. He doesn't forget who. He won't forget that, man. That you checked them. You know, some kids got to get checked. The ones like that, man. And that's important. You know that you know by doing that you affected his. You know, we all know this stuff. Like good coaches or good teachers and all that stuff. You know, really influence kids for the future. And yeah, I mean, this probably goes back to like the trophy, like the what is it called, the participation trophy generation, right? I mean, I didn't grow up with that. You know, you got the first place trophies that were bigger, the second and the third, I guess, was that. I think that's what. Or you got like a little fucking thing, but I didn't grow up in that culture. I mean, in that time where like every kid got a trophy. I mean, I don't know that, you know, and I'm actually glad that I didn't grow up in that. But I mean, if any of y'all did, man, I mean, I don't know what, you know, that's probably culturally like that right there is probably not the beginning. It's a big part of how kids are now, and we were talking about how society, how these kids don't, they feel entitled, right? They feel entitled to a lot of they feel entitled to victory when you know they've never even tasted defeat, you know.
Yeah, and they haven't earned it. I agree with that, Carlos. I call that you know, youth sports egalitarianism. You know, where and also that ties into this this whole effort of like self-esteem, where we have to kind of like manage, you know, how everybody feels about themselves, and we're so scared, you know, that a child or an adolescent, you know, might have a negative feeling as a result or as a consequence of something bad happening. You know, guess what? You know, I told my daughter this, you know, the other night. Like, life isn't fair. You know, you may have done something and you expected something to happen, but it didn't happen that way. Sorry, like that's just the way life is. And the key to life is being able to, you know, work in those spaces where we don't get the anticipated results, and having the proper attitude. And one thing that I would like to add on this topic of coaches, you know, no matter what age level that you are coaching, whether it's 5 years old or, you know, a varsity team, a coach is a teacher first and foremost. If you are a coach only coaching to get wins and you know, it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but I don't think that I am, because you know, a good coach is a teacher that teaches the fundamentals of the game. You know, you need to know at least you know, the basics, how to teach the fundamentals, the basics of the game. And part of that, if you are really a good coach, you will be able to teach um, like, these are all building blocks. You know, in basketball, you dribble the ball up the floor, you've got to be able to dribble, and you've got to be able to dribble with both hands. And people on the wings have to work to get open. You've got to teach, you know, those building blocks. And, you know, you've got to be able to, you know, pass with either hand, move without the ball, all of these things. And if you can do that, then there's a point to everything, which is you know, the point is, the objective is, we're trying to score, we're trying to win, we're trying to keep the other team, you know, from scoring. And you know, a good teacher is going to be able to kind of paint that picture for the kids. But if you're unorganized, if you don't know what it is that you're talking about, it quickly becomes confusing. The kids lose motivation, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where I think a lot of coaches just default to saying, well, who's my best player? Here's the ball. Go shoot every time. Well, that's not being a good coach. That's not being a good teacher. So I think it all kind of fits in together. And you've got to know your sport. You've got to study the sport. And, you know, on top of that, the last thing that I'll just add right here is, if you know your sport, you know the fundamentals, you know how to teach to win the game, there's got to be an overriding purpose. And I think this is what Carlos was talking about earlier. Maybe it was Justin. You know, how to be a good teammate. You know, what is the purpose of all of this? And, it can't just be, to win the game and stick it in the other person's face, or, I see this a lot too. Moms and parents will get the picture of the kid with the trophy and, brag about the kid and all of that. If it's only about that, that's really surface, shallow level. Like, there's got to be something deeper that we're teaching with the game, and it all kind of threads together. That's the way I see it.
All right, so let's kind of wind it down and wrap it up. That was really good, Jonathan, with sort of a closing thought, guys. Trey, Carlos, y'all got anything else to add on to that? And we'll kind of wrap it up with this, because we've covered a lot of things, both societally and in sports, and having good leadership and also being good teammates are probably the biggest takeaways. And that's, you can be both. You can be a good leader and a good teammate. As someone who spent most of my career in management, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is, like, not only am I in charge of leading and having that responsibility, but I'm also a part of the team. Like, I have a job to do, and it's being successful is vital. Being successful is relying on me doing my job just the same as it's relying on everybody else doing their job. So as a coach, as a leader, you are just as much a part of the team as everybody else who is, on the team. So what else you got?
I guess as a sort of closing thing that I would just say is that my whole life, I guess, from my perspective, has been this sort of sequence of failed leadership, whether it be my parents or the leaders that I thought would have been the people to look to throughout society, whether it be my coaches or teachers or whatever it may be. None of them seem to have the best interest for me at heart. And it's something that's difficult for me to coming to this age now, where I have to be a father, and having had a father who I didn't feel like was assertive enough in and of himself to be capable of trying to take the leadership role that I believe that he deserved. It's something that I'm trying to wrestle with myself, and it's definitely a learning experience. But I think that I owe it to my son, and this is where I view it differently, and where I think that it's going to come into play, and why I feel like I'm more disciplined and more capable in as far as that than my father, as far as I'm trying to develop this and nurture that into being capable of accepting the role of leadership that I need to have in my family, as well as in anything else that I need to do in society. And it's just the frustrating part of, like you said, Jonathan, it's very much a sort of more egalitarian thing, where we see people who are in positions that they don't need to be. And I'm sure Jonathan, Justin, I'm sure, Justin, you've seen other managers. You mentioned before that there are other managers that are not like the leadership that you're trying to portray, of being the just leader, of trying to make sure that everything is a fair system that everybody's operating in. You may have favorites, you may have friends, you may enjoy certain other people working with you than others, but definitely setting up that fair system for everybody is going to make for a better society in that way.
Yeah, man, and I just want to close by saying that I do want to be a part of a loud voice, or a leader, in that I understand that culturally, sports and politics should be more intertwined if you want to move an agenda that is more based on a good foundation of what the average person can grasp onto, as far as like an idea. So yeah, when I built my stadium in my backyard, man, I started envisioning, like, okay, we're going to have these games. It's going to be all of the adults first, but that they have kids. They're going to bring their kids, and they're going to see how the culture that I'm setting up here, where everybody needs to play right. Hey, no hard fouls. Be clean. Be this, and then of course those kids are going to learn about the crazy vato that talks about Texas secession, and they're going to start spreading that out to their middle schools and the high schools and all that shit. So like, yeah, I mean, I know I'm joking around, but I'm not about those. I mean, I'm really trying to do what I feel is right for my family, my friends, my culture, my community, and I live this shit, so self plug, check out my podcast. I'm slowly trying to do I put that in my shows and stuff like that, so check it out, and for sure, for anybody that thinks that someone that just gets into sports is like not smart or something like that, man, I'd be surprised that a lot of those people that just are only into sports, check out their net worth before you start talking some shit, and realize that they have a lot to bring to the table than just like, oh, they're just sports people. You'd be surprised that just because they don't get into politics and all that. So I want to be somebody that tries to bring a little bit of that sports culture and the political culture together to do something good for my community.
Sports is incredibly valuable to society and culture, and whether you have a direct involvement in it or not, it has probably impacted your life in some way. And I think that's something that, especially in some of the circles that we all tend to run in, sports is like this dumb thing, but it's really not, and it really is incredibly important, and there are some very deep conversations that can be held around sports and that tie societally back into everything that we see in our day-to-day lives. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. This has been great. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime. For everybody watching or listening, check back on Monday, or actually you can check back on Thursday sometime mid-morning. My co-host from the morning after, Dag, is going to be joining me, and we are going to be talking about the failure of fake meat. Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat have both seen significant downturns and borderline bankruptcies, and we're going to talk about the failure that is fake meat. So tune in to that on Thursday, and if you miss it on Thursday, the podcast version will release on Monday. In the meantime, hope everybody has a great rest of your evening, a great week, and we will catch you later. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Justin.